Andy, let's go back to just the day-to-day around the firehouse. What's going on there? Are you guys, what are you doing? Are you just masking up and living in the quarters, or how's that work?
Yeah. So strangely enough, the good thing is we never got to the point of like New York City here. We were expecting it, and it hasn't hit yet. So whether either we got lucky, there was a bunch of talk of like, the virus doesn't like warm weather, and it's hot down here. So maybe, there's all these crazy theories going on. And I don't know if it was just that, we started, we got wise and we started really using the PPE and people started staying at home, or if it's just luck of the draw. But strangely enough, everything went kind of eerily quiet. Like our normal call volume of car accidents and this and that, and in the daily grind of life that ends up, creating emergencies, all that side of it just slowed down. And then so what was left was the actual really sick people that were calling, and then also the infected ones. So it did up the stress level for us, because now we're going in and we're like, all right, we know this guy called. He says he's a confirmed case and he's having trouble breathing and he needs to get to the hospital and get on a ventilator, and, you have to get in there and basically, start treating this guy and get him prepped up for the ambulance and take him in. And so you're kind of gearing up and you're like, coming out of there. So it's a lot higher stress and a lot more thought of like, don't touch your face, don't touch your face.
Well,
how you take your PPE off, how you do this. Like, all right, come over here. All right, strip down. We're as soon as we pull in the station, everybody put your clothes in the wash and hit the showers. And, so it just kind of changed our dynamics of day-to-day life, a lot more. And just the stress level of a few calls that on a normally we could run them routinely, all right, so it's a broad, chest pain or trouble breathing, shortness of breath call. One of these kind of calls that for us is kind of like, we know how to do this. We know what drugs to give and what, and how much oxygen and this. And then it just kind of amplified it so much more though now, because now you're just so worried about putting on your stuff and, and
bringing it back to the firehouse, obviously.
Yeah, bring it back to the firehouse.
Yeah.
And then conversely, from there, you bring it home, and you're just like, I kind of had some days where it was just kind of like, I came across a couple people that were, infected. And then it's like you come home and you're like, I'm staring at my door, wanting to come in, and you're just kind of like, man, I don't want to give this to my daughters, to my wife, stuff like that. So it was kind of, there was kind of a lot of tough parts there to it, Sure. And it still can happen. It's kind of funny how eventually your reality, just becomes the norm after a while, and you kind of go with the flow of it now. But I just remember kind of in the beginning, it was it was kind of scary. It was tough.
For sure.
But we're doing all right. We're coping, and we hit about 200 firemen out of our department were put in quarantine, whether from direct or indirect exposures. And then about a quarter of those, maybe about 50 of them actually came down with it. We had one guy really badly hospitalized and was very close to eating a ventilator and having to get on it, but he ended up recuperating and get out. And and a handful of us that did get it and now have the antibodies, they're constantly donating their blood because they're finding that the people who are severely affected and on ventilators and that might be on death's doorstep, they're finding that a transfusion from somebody with the antibodies is what's saving a lot of people. So our guys who have been infected, have beat it, and they're back out on the field, are constantly going and donating their blood to try to, help the ones that are really bad off. Awesome,
man. Awesome. Are you getting, do you have any ties back to Madrid these days?
Yes. So, because my mom still lives over there. She bounces back and forth. She was lucky that she was here stateside when the pandemic broke. And, so we kept her housed here and didn't have to go back to Spain. But my youngest brother, who's over there, has been locked up for some 50 days straight. It was hardcore lockup. Like you could walk to the closest grocery store that was by your house and then walk back, and that was it. And there was no going outside. So Italy and Spain were, the two that got hit pretty the hardest, and they were locked up for a long time. He says just now they're starting to let everybody out, and it's by certain age groups at certain times of day, get to go out at certain times, kind of like prison yard rules or something, you know.
Yeah,
So
sure.
poor guy was locked up for a while there, but
Wow.
I have a term for you, Andy, that describes you, and I use it on my kids, and I was talking about it the other day, an optimistoic.
Optimistoic. I've never heard of that one.
I made that word up because I was talking.
Okay.
It's stoic belief in optimism.
Okay, I love that. I love that. I'm going to write that one down.
That's you. And when I was telling that to a young millennial, I said, don't you think you could use that to be more optimistic, to believe in the goodness of the world? And as Colin Powell said, optimism is a force multiplier. And he said, yeah. And I said, positivity. And he said, yeah, but you're going to like this word too. It made me burst out laughing. He said, we're millennials. We live in a constant state of anticipation.
Disappointment.
So I said to him, how do we build hope in anticipation? And he said, that's my problem right now. I'm trying to find hopeful things. And here's what I'm saying to you, Andy. You are that hope. You breathe it. You're the medicine for a better world. You're teaching everything to this younger generation, not just in the firehouse, but out there when you're going around on your board. You're good people, brother. Proud of you.
Thank
always.
you.
You're amazing.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
you're an
that.
amazing spirit, brother. And that teaching is always, it's action. Medicine is a verb.
Wow. I like that. I like that. That's
man.
awesome.
Yeah, you're doing good work, Andy. Keep it up.
I appreciate
man.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's I think your example, like I said, of endurance right now is pretty amazing. We're all going to need some more endurance here over the next weeks and months to come, I think.
Amen.
Yeah, I think so. I think we haven't seen the end of this pandemic, and and it's moving forward. We're all just going to have to be a little bit more cautious and careful, but still try to make our lives work to the best they can for a little time being here.
Well, you're inspiring me, man, to move forward. There's a lot of people that are challenged right now, restaurants shutting down, and life as we know it, I think, is going to be different moving forward. Right.
No, it will be. It will be, and we'll see. We'll see at the end of all this if it changes us for the better, or if it or if it makes us implode. We don't know. We're gonna have to find out. But the only way is
but keep. What you're doing every day is it's all about to teach perseverance, to teach endurance, to teach not just to. We don't want kids to be survivors. We want them to be overcomers and prevailers. That's what you teach. And you teach it by physically showing an example of it, not just in the firehouse, but on the track. So you're a masterful, great veteran, and you're also a masterful, great example to kids of why it's important to prepare and be ready for whatever comes, because normal, Andy, is just a setting on a dryer.
That's pretty amazing. The analysis of that, sometimes I take that for granted, or I don't even realize that's what I'm doing. I just know of how I'm geared, how I operate, and what I kind of what brings passion to my life. And then sometimes it takes somebody like that to break it down and remind me, or every now and then I'll get an email of somebody that's just like, you have inspired me in such a way, and I just kind of like, I didn't even realize or know that that's kind of what how some people are seeing it or perceiving it. So I really appreciate that, and then it gives me that extra drive sometimes when sometimes I want to throw in the towel, that I'll think like, what, maybe I'll just inspire one more person. So
well, what if I told you that one of those young millennials in the firehouse, I promise you, is going to be the fire chief of Miami-Dade.
Yep.
Think now. You never know.
No, it will be one day that one of those millennials will be running our department. So
you got it.
Well, like I've told these guys, Mike and Steve, that I think this is a good platform for us to reset and kind of decide. We have the opportunity right now to kind of say what direction would we like to go in. Are we going to be kind of the negative naysayer over on one side, or are we going to be the optimist stoic on the other? And I think this might be a valuable reset for us, and you're kind of reminding me about that, Andy. So thank you.
All right.
What he's trying to say with that is he wants me to bring him one of my longboards later so he can try that 1 mile race this month. He wants to get in the race.
I'm in the race, man.
He wants in, man.
Yeah. I don't know if I can do 300, Andy, but I'll try my best.
No, you can't. Neither can I. No.
Yeah, no, that's an unbelievable feat. So,
it's
no,
funny
but
when
you know what's amazing though about that whole setting though is, and I always explain that because people will say, "Man, you did 300, and what do other people do?" And I said, "Listen, everybody that shows up," and that's the first thing I tell a lot of the newcomers to this, and they're like, "Well." They come in and they see, and I'm like, don't look at it like you're trying to go after some world record. I said, what's your record? What's your challenge? What's your basically what's your 300 miles? Your 300 miles just be the century mark, and that's kind of what your goal is. And some people have a heart, they'll grind it out and they'll gut it out, and they'll hit that 100 mark, and to them it was, the most amazing thing, and it is the most amazing thing. And truthfully. When I'm racing around on that track late at night and there's all but a handful of people, I'll see somebody that, is, they're struggling and they're having a hard time, but they're still out there and they're still doing it, and they're not going to come nowhere near 300. They're going to come nowhere near the top of the leaderboard. But to them, it's important to stay, to stay on it, to stay doing it and hit, their 100 mark or something like that. And so I would always gain inspiration from them for doing that, and be like, hey, this guy's out here gutting it out too,
Well, and I think you bring up a very important point. And that's, we all bring our gifts and talents and quite honestly, our weaknesses as well. I saw it when I went back and taught some of these dental students over the years, and you see strengths and weaknesses. I mean, that kid that's getting an A+ in biochemistry may not have the best hand skills, but so, you think like, hey, if we gather up 100 people here in the Napa Valley and we give them 15 ingredients, the bell curve is going to be in place. In other words, some people are going to be able to produce a masterful meal, and some people don't even know what flour is,
Mm-hmm.
So, we all bring our gifts and talents, and I think it's important to remind, especially our youth, that just because you may not be strong in one area doesn't mean that you don't bring value to the world. Find that value, find that grace that you've been given, and utilize it, And if you're not strong in one area, move on. Try to find your strength.
I totally agree. That's
Andy,
very well said.
I talk to kids every day, and one of my favorite stories is I tell them there's a young man who joined the military and went off for a couple of years and then returned. And he never had above a C average when he was in high school, and he was teased a lot by the other kids. But when he comes back, he joins the fire department, and this guy becomes an expert because he has such a great emotional intelligence and heart for people and respect for being a secure and rescue person. Then he learns the jaws of life. And he's out there on the jaws of life, and there's gasoline splashing up under his Nomex pants, and it could take his life like that. And the other firemen back away out of respect for what could happen with the sparks. And he's gently talking to the person entrapped in the car and joking with them. And he risks and maybe will give his life to save theirs. And I ask everybody in the audience, isn't he a genius too?
Right.
He's a genius of the human heart and spirit. And inspire comes from the Greek term to breathe in the spirit.
Yep. And that right there, that story right there repeats itself hundreds of times in my line of work and in my job. And I was like, I almost felt like you were talking about me a little bit there. I was just like, yeah, not that great of a student in school, wasn't my strong point, but you give me screaming people in a burning house and I'll stay cool, calm and collected, and I'll put the fire out, and I was just wow, but that will never reflect in any standardized test in school, and it will never reflect on any grade, in college courses or anything. And it's just funny how, some people just, but, a lot of people might walk around thinking like, I'm just not that smart. I'm just not that good at things or whatever. But they just, they got to realize everybody has a talent of what, of what they can pull off. And,
absolutely
something like that, in those situations
Andy,
is where you'll find, you kind of like, oh, I got the tolerance for this though. So it's very funny how, you spend the first section of your life, getting completely judged on how good is your memory and how good can you do math and arithmetic and whatever. But, but it doesn't take till adulthood to where you get put in that situation where you're like, oh, I'm good at, doing something completely else.
Well, and I think we're all guilty of it, all guilty of, I kind of, forcing a round peg in a square hole or whatever,
exactly.
and saying, you know what, you got to go to college. Your life's not going to be meaningful unless you go to college, or you got to go become a doctor. Come on. What about plumbers? What about electricians? What about everybody brings value?
They all look important now, Dr. Tim. The grocery clerk looks really important now for their heart.
Absolutely. And it's reminding us, it's reminding us that Stanford degree, really, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter.
Well,
what are you doing to bring peace and joy and help your fellow brother in this world? Are you playing beautiful music? Are you making a beautiful meal? Are you loving your children? Are you, so.
Yes, completely
There
agree.
were millionaires and billionaires at the top of the World Trade Center waiting to be rescued by working class heroes.
Yeah,
Millionaires and billionaires waiting. And then when I spoke at, there's an area called Rockville Center in New York where I spoke to all the Catholic school kids, their moms and dads, a lot of firefighters and cops. And I told them, I said, if there is a fire, and knowing what we know now, that they may not pay for the lung issues that we have. How many of you are still going with me? And all the hands went up. Because it's not about who they are. It's about how we believe in ourselves, and we're raised to give back what we think is important. And Andy, you're an inspiring person for that. You teach that daily as a fire lieutenant, as an athlete, and as a champion. Thank you for what you do and who you are.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
I got to hire this guy to walk around with and have him talk me up all the time. Man, he's good. I like him.
Well, hey, man, your story is super inspiring, and thanks for joining us. And keep up the good work, brother. You're doing awesome stuff, man. And we don't know what, like you said, the 300 Club, boy, you don't know what the human spirit's really made of until you test it like you have. And it sounds like you got quite a drive, man. And that's cool. That is really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And sure, hey, go ahead.
I just want to say, you know who I met today who was really amazing?
Who's that?
You.
Now he's definitely going to hire you, Mike. You're going to walk around. You're going
to job, Andy. I'm 70. I sit at home with the grandkid and watch Sam the Fireman on the Cartoon Network. I don't care about who is.
Yes, funny. Well, I totally appreciate you guys having me on, and if I can bestow, just a little inspiration to the listeners or anything, or if anybody, is feels like they want to check out anything for the distance skateboard related, head over to look up Skate IDSA, and you guys can get in the loop of some of the stuff that's going out there in that sport.
Yeah.
And for you guys, I want to bestow some of my endurance towards you to help you carry along in your endeavors. And especially, I really love the dental mobile thing on wheels. I think that's an amazing thing that you guys are going to be doing.
Thank you. Appreciate
Well,
that,
thanks,
Andy.
Andy. Yeah, thank you very much.
Take care of yourself. Be safe and well.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, brother. We'll see you. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you for joining us in the Barracks. To learn more about our hosts, guests, and how to support VET's Mobile Dental Unit, visit www.inthebarracks.org.